are going to hear from Chris Davies himself. He's joining us. Hello, Mr. Davies.
Terry, how are you?
I'm well, mate. I'm well. This is Pommy. Pommy, this is Chris Davies.
Pommy, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Mr. Davies. I'm very proud of what the boys have done today. I bet you've had a horrible day. It looks been full on from what we've been watching.
Look, I've just been in the room eating the copious amounts of sandwiches and the brownies that Claire has made for us. So outside of that, it's been a fine day for me. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about.
We were out here judging body language. We had everything on mute. It seemed to go down to the last minute. Can you detail today or tonight from your lens and what you're looking to achieve and what you did achieve?
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty important points in all of this, right? We bring in players who we believe can be better than role players for our club in areas of the ground where I and the rest of the group here feel like we need to add depth in, right? So all of the players, you start thinking about, Ainsworth, Haywood, they automatically come in and change the way that we're doing things, in front of the ball. Chesser, who's got the capacity to get up and down the ground. Florent, who can use the ball really well, adds to us on the outside. Reedy, who obviously adds some depth to what we need from a ruck perspective. But probably most critically, with where you start thinking about the future is the ability to match bids on the players that are aligned to our club, Harry Dean, Cody Walker next year, and an extraordinary amount of flexibility in the lead up to when Tasmania come into the competition. And from my background and understanding, albeit that I wasn't in the role that I clearly hold now and at my previous club, when those expansion teams come into the competition, the last thing that you want is to not have good young talent coming into your club. So for us to be able to bring that through over the next couple of years with the flexibility that we'll have in the lead up to 2027 was just vital to us.
Yeah. What about the Buku deal? What was the scenario there? That was one that was reported. It's been tricky to try and track what's real and what's not real, given the media really control the narrative at times. How close was that to getting done, and what do we do from here?
Look, we tried really hard with that, and I'm disappointed that we weren't able to bring Buku in. But the club went to the Bulldogs a number of times with different opportunities. There were picks on the table that we had with them earlier in the trade period, which they declined. And so from that perspective, you move on. You've got to do the other deals that you've got at play. And so I'm disappointed we weren't able to get that done. We'll need to sit back now and think about, okay, so who are the players that we might be able to bring in, whether that be from a draft perspective or from a train-on standpoint, or is there a delisted free agent that we might be able to add in that space into the future? But we'll take a little bit of time to contemplate that now and make the right decisions, whether that could also be having a couple of players come in and train with us through a period of the pre-season as well. So I'm not itching, and we're not itching to use the final spot. If we don't need to, we won't. But equally, if the right player is there, then we'll have a crack at that as well.
Chris, a two-part question. It's been quite heavily documented that Carlton needed the outside run, the back half run, and you highlighted at the start of the show Campbell coming in and Florent, who we know is an exceptional kick at the start of his career. How important was it as well to combine it into the second part of my question, to safeguard the future, but also be able to pick up these boys relatively cheap? If we look at the Campbell deal in isolation and Florent, it's effectively a pick that you would never use in the drafts, but you've somehow banked the Arsenal. You must be really happy that, considering we had the comp, we couldn't really use free agency like the other clubs, that we've managed to really cheat free agency almost as well and acquire our needs with making our assets better.
Yeah. Look, again, I say I'm really pleased with the net result of the trade period. And as I say, having those first round picks into the future, I mean, who knows? We might use one of those picks to slide back and get one of those second round picks back in or whatever. There's still a lot to play out. So they're the assets that we've got right now. You've only got to look at last year's draft to start to think about what clubs will give up if they see a player who's still on the board at their pick, to have the potential to bring them in. And, I think that gives us a great launching pad for the future. And that's in no way to say that we don't think we can be a lot better in 2026. I truly believe that bringing those players in to our club gives us a great opportunity to build out the depth in the squad in areas that, as you've just mentioned there, Pommy, is probably an area that most people would look at our list and say we don't have enough of that outside run. And I think that we've gone some way to addressing that. And, as I say, bringing in, Haywood and Ainsworth, I think they're pretty significant pieces to the front half as well.
Players are coming in, and there is excitement about that. I don't know if it's too early to ask you this question, but what can we do as a club to make sure that the environment is airtight? Because, I mean, we can look at a lot of things from either lens, depending on where our biases are. But bottom line, I think this year we saw there was just a situation where certain players were not wanting to be there for the future. So what do you think we could do to make sure that we don't have a repeat of this year?
Well, that's probably difficult for me to answer right now, Terry, without being in the environment and seeing, the way that our players interact with each other and seeing how the staff work. I think that there's, I wouldn't want to be the type of person who just thinks that I'm going to come in and say things and everything's going to be better, right? So I think that you've got to give me a little bit of time to actually get my feet under the table and start to think about how I can influence the squad positively down the track. That's players, that's staff. Yeah, clearly we want an environment where our players want to stay. That's a very big part of this right now is creating an environment where people feel welcome. They feel like they're able to make mistakes. They're able to perform at their best. That we've got a high performance group of staff who are able to drive performance out of our people. They're all aspects of it, and I wouldn't want to suggest that it's as easy to index in one or two of those things and think that everything's going to be better. But maybe it would be best to look at from where I have come from and see that player retention is a very important thing for me. We haven't been able to retain some of the players who have made their own decision to leave this year from a free agency perspective, and players leave there for different reasons. Some of it's just money, right? You can't deny that. And Charlie's also made his own decision to say that he wanted to leave for whatever reason, and it's best to ask Charlie for what those reasons were. But what I can promise you is that I'll be working very hard for our club to have the right environment for people to want to stay. I look often and think sometimes we don't have the same challenges as the non-Victorian teams in keeping people, and yet sometimes those non-Victorian teams are better at keeping their existing players than others. And I guess that's my background. Whether I'm able to positively influence that or not, I guess remains to be seen. But I'm absolutely aware of the importance of it, and I promise you that I'll work hard to make that the case at our club now.
Yeah. No, I love it. I am mindful of your time. So I do want to thank you very much for giving us yours. And I mean, coming on to a live stream is pretty intense. I've got to say it's a pretty big deal because it's live. So it's been great to have you with us, and hopefully it's the first of many conversations on the channel. And, I think this is a really important introduction to the fan base, and, hopefully for the club, just with that two-way connection with the fans as well. So, mate, thank you very much.
No, look, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm well aware of being the Carlton supporter that I am, the power of our supporter base and making sure that they're engaged in and proud of our club into the future. And, ultimately, I'm also well aware that results will help to dictate that. And I hope that I can be part of a successful Carlton future.
Mate, go Blues.